revenue from oil companies as well as non-oil companies actually fell. So here is an area
People may not realize that
yeah,
is a huge chunk of government's income.
And
Yeah.
let us not forget, our food import bill alone is $4 billion per year. And that is before VAT is included, because VAT is a domestic tax. So that 15% on $4 billion is approximately what government is saying, I'm prepared to forego for this to happen. Yeah?
Were you surprised to hear that measure, given the fact that prior to the actual release of the budget, there was talk about this being an austerity budget?
Yeah.
And normally you would hear an increase in taxes and a reduction in expenditure.
Right. Well, we had that conversation about austerity right here.
And you
in
said,
the program.
I don't think so. Yes.
Correct. And I felt that as fast as the word came out of the minister's mouth, I think there was regret. And in fact, when you look at the budget, I mean, we can't be talking austerity, and we have a budget that is $58+ billion compared to last year's budget, which was 52.
Right.
Yeah, in reading. So that in itself, the figure in itself, doesn't speak austerity, and we have seen increases in a number of key areas. So that, and even as the minister has made commitment in terms of us having a balanced budget in 2016, when you sit down and you think about it rationally, you know, it doesn't seem that we will be able to get there. Because in my view, if the minister was really taking us along the path of a balanced budget, what is it about this economy this year that requires that we need more money than we did last year in order to run it? It was a 7-point-something deficit that was read last year. Again, we have a 7-point-something deficit being read this year. The PSIP program last year was anticipated to be about $7+ billion. Again, this year it is anticipated to be 7-point-something billion. So if we're talking from the perspective of where real investment from the state is going to take place through the PSIP program, that has remained the same. So my question is, has recurrent expenditure increased so much that we really need this additional amount of billions of dollars?
Well, that would be worrisome, wouldn't it? Because we already have a very high level of recurrent expenditure.
Absolutely, it would be worrying, and it would also, to me, how then, and especially in the statement, the minister uses the term getting greater efficiencies several times in the budget. It's only at the end that we hear the 58 billion. So in my listening and hearing the minister talk about getting greater efficiencies from the dollar, getting better value for the dollar that we spend, he spoke about GATE, for example, where they're trying to clean it up, trying to reduce the misuse of the GATE program. He talked about the subsidy to the gas and reducing that. So I felt then that at the very most we would hear a budget of equivalent sizes last year, because the minister is sending the signal that, look, I'm telling you, we're reducing. Exactly, we're going to balance. Yeah. So we are starting to spend how much, and even though we might spend less than we earned this year, it's not going to be so much more. And so that when I heard the 58 billion, that was the first trigger that went off in my head. Well, wait a minute. And then he talks about 2016, by then having a balanced budget. But the next 2 years in Trinidad and Tobago, we're actually looking at budgeting time. I'm sorry, election, going into an election
that's the thing
period.
we're not talking about, which is the fact that if they were going to strike anything to do with the economy, this was the time to do it now.
That's right.
Because you're going into election mode afterwards.
Correct. So we'll be going into election mode, and we know, I mean, we of course we can't judge this government, because this government is new and it will be its first going into election mode. But if we had to look, correct, if tradition is any indicator,
road paving, things like that. Yeah.
Correct. Then we could possibly be seeing that. So that I think that is an area that needs clarification.